All right, so wonderful to see you. Thank you, Paul, for a wonderful introduction. Very nice. And such a crowded room. I'm sorry not all of you get to sit on a chair. But maybe we can, after this talk, we'll do dancing chairs and other people get to sit, or you sit on the floor. So today I'm talking about my experience in terms of working with a remote team. I am based in Stockholm myself, but my team of developers is based here in Krakow. I love this city, it's so wonderful to be here. And I think I work with UX and I do a lot of user research. So that's what I think is one of the things that can help in terms of engaging your remote team. So that's what I'll be focusing on today. So I guess you all know what this is like. I guess this is me, and they are my developers. A diverse team, you can see. Unfortunately, in reality, it's not like that. But this is me on the video games. Hello, can you hear me? Can you see my screen? Am I sharing now? It sounds familiar? Yeah, thought so. So that's what we're going to talk about. Not about how you set up a good video conference, but other ways of getting closer to each other. So who is Kathleen? Who am I? I'm not normally at agile conferences, so I'm a very new face for you. I am a Dutchie. I'm from the Netherlands, but I moved to Sweden about 5 years ago. And I'm very curious, so I ask lots of questions all the time. About what people do, what they see, what they experience, what they think. And if I have to explain this, not to my grandmother, but to my mother, I go like, well, explore digital behavior. So like, digital behavior, what? Well, things you do on the internet, and why people do it the way they do it, and try to understand. I work with user experience, and I try to make sure that people focus a lot on the experience of the end users of products. And I work a lot with training my colleagues to become better at that more qualitative insight part of the work we do. So I have a fancy job title, at least I think it's kind of fancy. UX research lead at Schibsted. This is a very big online publishing company in Sweden. They have like the largest online newspaper in Sweden, but also marketplaces and so on. I work with training the UX team in doing more user research, but I also work with one of their products as their UX kind of person with lifestyle. And this, I'll show you more about that, the lifestyle at Schibsted. 10 years ago, I graduated in political science, and this is to show that diversity, you can come from any kind of background, any kind of fields, and still fit in here. So that's wonderful. Things went this way and that way, and somehow I ended up in tech. I didn't know this 10 years ago. I thought I was going to be a journalist. Very different. So if someone told me like, in 10 years you'll be there in Krakow and you'll be talking to a room full of people, I'd be like, no way. That's not happening. Not me. That's like not happening. Okay, so before we start, you know a bit about me. I would like to know a bit about you. So who here works with UX? A few. Who here works as a developer? More. Who works or has worked with remote teams? Yes, that's why you're here. Who thinks they are the remote team? Most of you as well. A lot of outsourcing happening here in Poland, I guess. Yeah, that gives me a bit of idea. Who here thinks it's really difficult to work as the remote team or with the remote team? Me too. Hello. So that's wonderful. Okay, then we know a bit more. So, the remote team, like I said before, this is me, this is my team. There's this distance between us, and there's all kinds of problems with remote working that you're probably well aware of. So there's the distance, it's very far away, so you can't actually see each other face to face very often. With this, there can be language barriers. Depends on how remote you work, but English is often, the main language you use. Not everyone is equally good at speaking English, so that, you know, it can lead to misunderstandings. And there can be cultural differences. In some cultures, people always say yes as an answer to a question. Yes, I can, even when they don't know to, but because they don't want to let you down. I don't experience that with my Polish colleagues. They say no to me a lot. That's okay. That's totally okay. Well, you don't have the social interaction after work, before work. Well, you can, you know, squeeze in a how was your weekend, but, you know, your 10-minute stand-up slot, you know, and then after that there'll be other people knocking on the door for the conference room and having to get in. You need to focus on the business. And you can't have that kind of social, you know, how's it going with your kids? What are you doing? How are you feeling? You focus on the business. That comes first. And then often there's no time for the social interaction. The coffee machine conversations, essential in the workplace, right? That's where you relax, you take your break, that's where you discuss side things, come up with new ideas. You don't have that with your remote team, unless you do video conference coffee breaks. Could work. Has anyone tried that yet? I think it would be nice. And then even, you know, sometimes you're in different time zones, have different working hours. That all makes it so hard. I was talking with someone yesterday, I had a team in China and was based in the US at the time myself. There she is. And it's like, okay, you know, you need to work out that little time gap before they go home and when you start working, that you can talk to each other. It can be so hard. But I experienced one more challenge. And I think, you know, because I focus on user experience and that's, you know, user research. And I think there's a challenge with really understanding the product's audience. And why do the developers need to understand the audience? Why don't they just do what I say? Well, sometimes you want to get that interaction going to really make a good product. I'm not there to make, you know, fill the backlog and set tasks and get someone else to just do it. I want them to feel equally involved in the product, equally involved in making it a good experience, coming up with ideas that I didn't come up with. I'm not sure about all the technical capabilities for them specifically, or in the platform, and so on. So you need a kind of interaction to make a really, really good product. So this is a bit more about my situation. We have two Swedish websites, one about fashion and one about home decoration, and it's all about shopping. So that's our target group, women that love shopping. Well, we hope to target them. Sometimes, you know, it's not 100% fit. Our developers are in Krakow, all the other stakeholders are in Stockholm. So there's this divide between, you know, the stakeholder, product owner, business development and so on, and then developers in Krakow. And what do? Well, we communicate via chat all the time to, you know, make sure that we communicate a lot, and it's open communication. We have daily stand-ups in video conference rooms. We have our demo retros via video conference. But I think, you know, I started working with them in June last year, and I thought, we can do this better. So this is our product. We have one English version we just recently started with. Denim on the streets and on the catwalk. Fashion, you know, it's wonderful. And I asked, you know, our developers, okay, how do you see yourself? Well, we're men, and we're not interested in shopping or fashion. So, I don't know what these women want, besides denim on the catwalk. I don't know. So, yeah, that's of course a challenge, and I don't think they didn't identify this as a problem themselves. I think it's fine. And I also think they don't have to be interested in shopping or fashion to be able to do a good job. But I do want to really understand who they're building this product for. So, a bit more about why it's important. If you think, you know, this beautiful iceberg is the product. And of course, we only see the top. This is such a standard slide, isn't it? But, you know, this is what your users see of the product. And and of course what the developers also see of the product. This is what we're building. We see the tip of the iceberg. And it's beautiful, it's white, it's robust. But below that, there's so much. They have a really good understanding of this murky part that's in the water first. I don't always understand that part. But the technology part. Everything is on the back end. Everything that's possible in terms of the platform and the technology and so on. And that's what the product's built on. But there's so much more below it. So, you have the business goals, because without any business objectives, there wouldn't be a product. You build it for a reason. It could be commercial reasons, but it could also be another kind of purpose, but the product has purpose. That's why it's created, and that's why, it's there to attract a certain kind of group of users. And I think below that, a bigger layer, is the user behavior and their motivation. And this is what I want to focus on, because that's what makes me tick. I hope it makes you tick as well. And I distinguish between user behavior and motivation, because user behavior is what people do. And the motivation is why they do it. And I think you can distinguish them also as like, hey, user behavior, we can measure that with data. And we know a lot of this. How often are they using our product or on our website? How long? What device do they use? Where are they from? What part of the world? And so on and on. How do they navigate? Things like that. But why they do it and why they come back, that motivation part, and what is it that makes the website or the product attractive, and what is it that frustrates them, but they still come back, or they don't come back, they decide to not recommend it to their friends. That's the motivation part, and it's such a big part that belongs to the product and the basis of it. And sometimes it's hard to understand it if you... Well, actually, I think it's hard to understand for everyone. I like shopping. I'm a woman. But I am actually not the same as all my users. So I shouldn't start thinking from what I think is important. I should be looking at the bigger picture. And then there's the context, the environment and the culture. And of course, if you're working with remote teams, that is a big challenge, because it can be so different. I don't think that the environment and the culture has such a big difference between Poland and Sweden, but at the same time it is. People think different about spending money on clothes and on interior decoration. Think and feel different about doing it online. Maybe you have a longer tradition of doing it online. Maybe the infrastructure, postal service is different. So all these things kind of have an impact on the product, and it's what it's based on and why we're building it and doing it. So I think all these things below the technology layer that of course our developers are master of, I think it makes sense to understand those things as well. They don't need to be an expert in it, but the better they understand everything that the product is built on, the better the product in the end will be. So when we go from there, this is what I did to engage more with my remote team. And I can share a bit more about my experiences. I share my user research insights often, at least once a month, but preferably more often. And I do it in forms of, real presentations about, okay, this is what I know about our users, this is what I found out, this is how they navigate, this is what they like, this is what they don't like, and so on. Or this is what I think is a bottleneck based on our data. What can we do to solve it? Often focus on different themes or different parts of the site, so that we can focus on something instead of just having an overkill of information. I provide lots of feedback on the product development by sharing key numbers and statistics. So I share information about revenue, going up, down, how are we doing? Share information about conversion rates. And of course that's not always interesting, because developers want to focus on what they do. But it does give them a feeling about how is it going with the product. Because they're so remote from it. None of their friends or family members use the product. They are not the target group for the product themselves. It's in a different language. So even if they can't read the content. So it's just good to know, how is the product doing? How is it perceived? And another thing I'm doing is that I really want to allow everyone on the team to provide ideas and solutions. Especially when it comes to really tricky situations where I know what the problem is but don't have the solution, or there are like 5 different ways to solve it, but what would be the quickest way to solve it, what is technically possible, and so on. It would be really good to get everyone's input on that. So everyone has a say in how do we build this product, instead of me being the person who orders other people around. This is what you should do, A, B, and Z. And then we have, acceptance testing. And if you haven't done exactly what I've written in this Jira or, task, then it will go back to in development. And that's how I control this product. I don't like working that way at all. I want everyone to be able to have some input and feedback and, help make it the best thing it can be. So I want to share some examples with you of how I do it. So this is very easy to do. Heat maps, scroll maps, you just install a plugin and then, you can make this off your website. In this case, lovely bikini, almost the season for it. Summer is about to start. And, we were looking at our shopping pages and realizing, hey, 80% of the people see the product. They scroll, about this far, here, 80% of them. But less of them see the to the shop button, which is our call to action. That is a problem. Maybe we should move the button up or, do something. We also see that lots of people are clicking on the product, expecting to get something more or something out of it. Not so many people want to go to the shop. So based on this, we said, okay, team, we want to try this out. We want to make this image clickable. It's such a minor task. It's done in no time. But to actually explain why we're doing it and then show the result. Well, we changed it. Every click on this image would actually lead to the shop, to potentially buying it. And we saw a really good increase on conversion and revenue. And that's something we shared. So that really simple task, okay, make the images clickable and make sure that they lead to the shop, is something that we could celebrate with the whole team. It was the dumbest task in the whole backlog, but it made such a big difference. So the person who did it was really happy about it, the whole team was happy about it, and so on. Now, I'm not going to play this user recording because we don't have enough time, but you can also do user recordings and kind of see how people navigate and use their mouse and so on. How people interact with your product. And just seeing that without even them explaining anything about what they do, here you see all the mouse movements. It looks like a spider on acid. But it's funny to see how really people navigate with the mouse and click around and want to see these products and so on. So our developers thought, that's interesting. It really makes us think like, okay, we have the wrong image of our users. One of the things that we noticed in many recordings with not the fashion side but the interior decoration was that a lot of the users were using the side scroll bar and dragging that up and down instead of using scroll on the mouse to navigate through the site. And they were like, that's very different from the way I do it. Yes, it is, because you are not the key audience here. So yeah, like they said, we gain insights on the technical capabilities as well as what they expect. If you know where people click, and where they go, and what they do, you get more of an idea of what they are like. Another example is to do lots of user testing. This came out of, there's a funny image, I will explain. This is not how we display our content. But I shared some heat maps and click maps of all the fashion collages that we make, and we saw a lot of people clicking in these images. And then the developer said like, oh, okay, you know what I can do, what we can experiment with, is making these collages clickable and making sure, you know, that the products are actually live and coming up based on that. Because before it was just a flat image. And I said, okay, well, why don't you start with making a prototype and see what we can do with this. So he started making a prototype and I said, okay, it has to be bare minimum, not more than that, please. And he said, why? So okay, well, you'll see. So he did the bare minimum and came to me and said, okay, this is kind of done as a mock-up, but I have this massive list of what we need to do. We need to do this, and then we need to make da, 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 da. I said, okay, before you go any further, I will let our editors, our fashion editors, use your product, this collage tool. This is our editor, Beatrice. She does not know I'm using this image of her. Don't tell. She used the product, or used the collage tool, and was reflecting, okay, how do I put these things together? How's the layering working, and so on. And I sent it back to our developer here, Marius. And his reaction afterwards was like, okay, I thought this would be really boring to watch her use, you know, my collage tool for an hour. But actually, I learned a lot. And, you know, what did he learn? More specific. His perception of what was important in terms of using his tool. So this whole list he had with all the things that he still needed to do, he was able to reorganize them and change them and go like, okay, but for this, you know, bare minimum kind of collage tool to work, I need to do these things first and all the other things later. So it was such a good experience, and it really, you know, changed the way, what do you prioritize? How do you do it? And why are you doing it? And then all of a sudden he has Beatrice in mind and go like, okay, if I change this, it will be easier for her to use this. And she will want to use it. And that's when my, you know, contribution will be a success. One more example of sharing data. This is a super boring graph, actually. But this is our conversion rate. So after working for a while, I thought, okay, you know, we also need to recap and say, okay, what have we been doing over the long run? And then we noticed, like, okay, each little change and everything that we're doing, this is very cryptic descriptions, actually, they all have impact on our conversion. So here, you know, this example of linking images directly to a partner shop, we saw an increase, and then we started using the splash on the buy button. Oh, it actually went down. Then we changed it. Everyone loved this splash on the buy button, but we had to delete it. But we can actually show, okay, well, it works. And this, you know, a simple graph like this, just sharing it, doing a demo or some other moment, actually made them realize, okay, all the little things I'm doing, and all the big things as well, contribute to the overall bigger picture. So that's, you know, I think the main thing is mixing and matching. It's like you're in the kitchen, cooking up a storm, or just making a mess. Both possible. I think it's really good to use the analytics-based data. Who's using it? What are they doing? Where are they clicking? Where do you think, you know, there's bottlenecks? But then, you know, also run A/B tests to do quick fixes. See, okay, version A or B, what works better? And base your development on that. Do the qualitative research by talking to users and actually also conveying that back to your development team. They might think it's boring at first, but actually, you know, you learn a lot. Revenue feedback, talk business. Why not talk about business? That's why you're in it together. If things are not going with the business, it won't be going well for them or you either. So you're all in it together. This very simple heat maps, scroll maps, it all helps to understanding more about user behavior and their motivation and where you should be going. So for us, what happened next? Well, this happened next. All this kind of input I was giving them about. This is what Sweden is like. This is what our environment is like. This is what's happening. This is their behavior. This is what motivates our users. These are the business goals. It all feeds into the technology. And we made the product better with everyone's input. And I would then love to say that, like, oh, wow. Every time I did a presentation like this, they were like, wow. No. Sorry to say that. The first time I gave a presentation about, user research insights and so on, they were like, it took about 45 minutes, I prepared well. They just said, thank you. And I was like, okay, I'm never ever doing this again. This was a lot of time I put into analyzing and preparing, really, engaging you and trying to get this interaction going through the screen. And you just say, thank you, stone-faced. And I was just like, oh, why? Why is it so hard? But then afterwards, about half a day later, on a Slack chat channel, someone was saying, hey, you know this problem you were talking about? I think I might know a solution. And I was like, yes, I hooked him. Now I can do it. And then, 2 weeks later, we had our demo retro. And then during retro, all of a sudden, there were like 6 post-its saying the best thing that happened this sprint was Kathleen's presentation. And then I was like, ooh. Now I'm really, in. So I think, of course it takes a while. It's a whole process. We've been at it for a while. It's been a great way to open minds and tap into that creativity, letting developers come up with solutions for problems that I actually don't know the solution for. Or even if I do know a solution, they come up with something better. That's always great. More initiative, engagement, and I think everyone started to feel more ownership. And one of the most important things, we started to celebrate our successes. The small ones, the big ones, but everyone feels part of the success. So that's been really key thing for us. So if I think a bit about, an agile process and what did we do, how can you kind of like merge this in your day-to-day work? If you work with UX or if you are a developer, these are things you can also try to initiate. It doesn't always have to hang on this one person. It can be anyone really. Product owner, anyone who has kind of information that you might need. During stand-up, share small outcomes. We had all-time high in revenue this week. Great. It's one sentence, but it gives an idea of what we're doing, where we're going. Include it during demo, retro, talk about it. Include this kind of information in your user stories and in your backlog. Not just describe a task, this is what we're doing, but based on these research findings, we're doing this, and we're expecting it to have this and this output. Groom your backlog based also on business goals, so that you can have like a business goal that you're working on for a couple of sprints. So now we're working on increasing conversion, and these are all the stories related to it. So this is what we're going to focus on, with the one that we think has most impact first. Things like that, I think, work. And I think, when you're thinking about, okay, how do I get this into the backlog and into our user stories, think about, okay, this change is worth doing. Spending people's time and so money on doing this, implementing a certain change. How does it contribute to the user experience, and describe that as well? Does everyone agree and understand on what we're creating? It doesn't hurt to check that, on the video conference. But maybe also fly over, say hi, have a drink, and talk about it as well. I shouldn't forget saying that. Because that did help. After a while, I also came over and we had a meal and had some drinks. That helped a lot. And what's the value? Sometimes small tasks have really big value. Kind of describe that and say that as well. So this was it for today for me. It says 0 right there, so right on time. More questions, you can of course email me or you can tweet me, but I'm here these 2 days. You can talk face to face. We don't have to do a video conference or talk remotely. I'm here now. So that's it for me. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.